Recorded Books and RB Digital present Chester B. Himes, A Biography by Lawrence P. Jackson, narrated by Ruffin, Prentiss III. A quote from Old Fleece in Moby Dick. For all angel is nothing more than the shark well governed. Prologue. In the spring of 1934, a young prisoner in Ohio's maximum security penitentiary sat in a raw dormitory near an open latrine with a typewriter purchased from his gambling winnings. For 3 years, he had plunked away at short stories, one after another, dozens of them, mailing them out to newspapers in Chicago and Atlanta. Slowly, he had mastered his craft while reading everything that the prison trustee had in the cart, from glossy magazines and detective stories to Omar Khayyam and the latest by John O'Hara. He studied the writings of Ernest Hemingway. 5 years into his sentence, the 24-year-old had known some minor literary successes, but in that year, he would have some major ones. Although it wasn't unheard of for an Ohio convict to achieve literary fame, O. Henry had walked the same yard. There was a difference. Chester Himes was black. If race had reasserted its powerful relevance in the 21st century, in the early 1930s, it had fully evolved into what the sociologist and writer W.E.B. Du Bois forecast in 1903 as the problem of the 20th century, the problem of the color line. Up to 1934, there had been one black professional writer of regular national reach, the short-lived poet and novelist Paul Laurence Dunbar, who was best known for poetry in black dialect, what he himself was prone to dismiss as a jingle in a broken tongue. Others had tried and abandoned the job, moving on to steadier work. For most people whose parents or grandparents had reached adulthood as chattel slaves, it was thought improvident and foolhardy, if not genuinely odd, to pursue a career exclusively as a professional writer of fiction. This was certainly true for Chester Himes. At the beginning, he ignored, denied, erased, or felt ashamed of much of what is understood today as racial ancestry or racial identity. He knew mainly that blackness had helped him pull a 20-year sentence for an armed robbery, a punishment he received at 19 after he threw himself on the mercy of the court and confessed. A broken back was the only reason he had the leisure to write in the segregated prison, and unlike the other black convicts, wasn't shoveling coal all day, every day. But to look at Chester Himes in 1934 was not, however, to be overwhelmed by something that mattered little to him. Light-skinned and slightly built, he exuded boyish, almost feminine charm. He had chipped teeth and several prominent scars, the main one on his chin, but they were the result of an accident, not street fights. For all of his life, he would strive to appear tougher than what he felt inside, and writing helped him steel himself emotionally. He often compared the literary life to prize fighting, and he accepted the discipline of training, punishment, and rejection, saying that a fighter fights and a writer writes. What he would accomplish in gray dungarees on the gray bunk surrounded by the clamor of unruly men suffering through the winter of their confinement would land him in a national magazine in 1934, repeatedly, alongside the best American writers, Ernest Hemingway and Langston Hughes, another young black man from Ohio attempting to make a career in writing stick. Within 10 years after an early parole, Chester Himes fulfilled all his youthful promise and published a fiery first novel with America's largest press, Doubleday. Not even 2 years after that, and with arguably America's best literary publisher, Knopf, he completed the book that would define his career, Lonely Crusade. But although he was acclaimed, if he is not the greatest writer of fiction among contemporary American Negroes, there is none greater.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?